Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today, finally, we're back on with the EverReady Sky Baron. Now, it's been, I don't think it was November the last time I actually made a video about this. Could have been early December, but I think it was November. And I think in the last video we got all the we stripped all the cabinet off. Like I said, we've got the chassis fully working and quite happy now. Big thanks to my mate Steve over at Steve's Vintage Long Stay Workshop, because he has donated an offcut of veneer for me. He's having a television cabinet re-veneered, and this was a spare piece of veneer because he basically had to buy a full roll and he didn't need the whole roll, so he said I could have have one of the offcuts to do this radio. Now the thing is, this is it's an iron-on veneer. Now, it's not what I'm actually really used to using. I have used iron-on products before. Not specifically a nice wood veneer like this, but I have used iron-on products in the past. But to be honest with veneer, I'm more used to using traditional veneer. I don't tend to stick it on in the traditional way. I do actually tend to use contact adhesive to put veneer on cabinets, as where this has its adhesive already on the back. And I did have a tiny little chip that I'd taken off the edge of here, and I did have a little play before on a scrap of wood just to familiarise myself with actually using this stuff. So I mean, I might make some mistakes, I'm not sure, because I've not done like a whole piece or anything like that on this yet, but that's what we're going to do in this video. Basically what I'm going to do in this video is we'll get this piece of veneer, we'll get it all cut to size, we'll get it applied to the cabinet, and then we'll finish the cabinet off in the next video. But I think this video will already be quite long with us fiddling about with getting this veneer all cut and fitted onto that cabinet, because there's a fair bit to do. We've got the top there to do, we have a couple of strips, one there and one there, and we have a strip there, a strip there, a strip there, and a strip there. Now that piece across the front, I think on the last video I did on this, I said I didn't think that was veneer. It is a piece of veneer, but it is very, very well fixed on and it's not damaged. So I'm actually going to leave that piece. So we've got one original piece of veneer still on the radio, and all the rest of the veneer actually will be this new stuff. Fortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be a terrible mismatch. This is not. I'm not putting any finish on this yet, as where this has got a dyed finish to it. So by the time I've put a finish on that and dyed it down a little bit and then put a lacquer on this, I don't think there'll be much of a difference. I think it'll actually look pretty good. Anyway, what I'll do, I'll get the camera reset so you can actually see more what I'm doing, you know, closer up like, and we'll actually get on and we'll get this veneer fitted to this cabinet. So I'll get the camera set back up and we'll crack right on with that. So back in a sec. Okay, that's better. You can actually see more what we're doing here now. Now, we don't need a huge number of tools for this, just some basic things. I've got basically an old flat iron. If I just tilt you up there, you can spot here we've got an old flat iron. I've got that probably about the mid setting, so it's probably around the 160 degree mark. It's not mad hot, it's not cold, you know, you will definitely burn yourself on it, put it that way, but it's not quite hot enough to melt solder. If I put a piece of solder on there, it'll perhaps just ball the end up a little bit, you get a little bit of smoke come off it, but it won't actually melt the solder, it's not that hot. We don't want it burning hot, or otherwise we're going to end up scorching the veneer. But that's already on, and that's warmed up to the temperature that I want it at. Right, in fact a good way, I'd say, if you're doing this, to set the iron up, that is an old iron, it doesn't have a degrees setting on it or anything like that. If you get it just to the point where it just won't melt solder, you should be about right. Right, the first thing we want to do is mark on this piece of veneer what we're going to use as the top. We just we are going to be trimming this when it's actually veneered down. So what we want is we want a little bit of a gap on that side. We'll take a pencil and basically we'll mark about the same on the other side, so we want a bit of a gap. We'll mark down there. I'll just get over the top and mark. So we've got about a 5mm overlap on both the front and the back, and the side's about the same. Again, we're going to be trimming this down when it's actually fitted to the radio. We will be trimming. We'll be trimming the side pieces and the front and the back down. But obviously, we want to cut that off the front and the back, so we don't want to waste any veneer. I can't really afford to waste any veneer on this project because I've only got this piece. Well, I do have the rest of the roll which hasn't been used yet, but I don't want to use any more than this. I want to use just the amount that I need. Okay, so we'll bring that back off there. We've got a line. I just need to reinforce that line so I can see it a little bit better. I need a straight edge. I'm actually using an old spirit level here because I know it's a very nice straight edge, and I also know I can use a knife against it and cut against it, which we'll need to do shortly. So that's the line that I just roughly marked with my pencil before. Just mark that in so we can see it properly. There we go. And we've got a line down there. These lines don't matter as much, like I say, because we can cut these. We don't need to cut this off just yet. So essentially what we've got is we've got a piece of veneer there which is roughly about 5mm bigger than the top of the cabinet all the way around. So next what we want to do is we want to cut it off there, and what I'm using, you could use a Stanley knife if you wanted to, but I've got some of these, and these are quite good for it. In the US you call them X-Acto knives, but it's basically a scalpel. Very useful for cutting veneer and stuff like that. Oops, I've just run into the tripod. I would say far more useful than a Stanley, to be honest. I'll use this. I'm sorry, probably not going to see what I'm doing here because I'm going to have to look over it. But basically, I'm just using the spirit level because it's a nice metal edge, and we'll just push on nice and hard. That's the other thing, with this being iron-on veneer rather than a veneer that you glue on. Obviously it's got the glue backing on the back, so it's not as easy to cut as the veneer that I'm used to. You have to push on quite a bit harder to go right through the backing veneer as well. Sorry, the backing glue rather as well as the veneer. Okay. Let's see if that's cut through it. See, we've gone through the wood there, but we've still got the backing to go through. Let's see if we can just. Unfortunately, we will be trimming this down later, so it doesn't matter quite so much. In many ways I think I do prefer the straight wood and glue it on myself rather than this, because you don't have this trouble where it's difficult to get through the backing. In fact it's a lot easier to cut and it's a lot easier to work with, but this was free, so I'm not complaining. I really am not complaining. Okay, we've got a piece cut off there. In fact, which is our, yeah, so that is our spare piece. We'll be using that to do the other bits of the cabinet. This is the piece that we're going to use to veneer the top of the cabinet. Now I had that under some books for probably the best part of 2 months, and it's still got a little bit of bend in it, but fortunately, like I said, this glue is meant to be fairly strong, so it should still stick down well enough. And everything in this is down to basically to preparation. I sanded that and made sure I've got all the old glue off it, so it's perfectly flat. It is really, really flat. If you leave any of the old glue that originally held the old veneer on, your new veneer will not go down nice and flat and straight. You've got to make sure that you've got every little bit of the old glue off, and it's just run your hand over it basically, and you'll be able to feel any little high spots. And if you feel any, either go in with something like a very flat blade like that, but you have to be super careful that you don't actually gouge into the wood, but you can just scrape off any little glue spots like that. Just make sure it's absolutely super flat, and then we can actually go and look at putting on the new veneer. Now the reason that we've gone over like that and we've made this new veneer overhang ever so slightly is, with this type of veneer where you iron it on and you use heat to actually set it on, it actually shrinks very slightly. The application of the heat basically makes the veneer shrink very slightly. Obviously if you don't cut it over like that, it shrinks and you end up with a little bit of a border on the edge. What we do is we'll put it on, we'll get it to shrink down, we'll turn it over, and then we can trim it with that knife and trim it perfectly flat right the way around then. The other thing, I've got a towel here, and what we'll do, once we're absolutely happy it's in the right place like that, we're going to cover it with a towel, and we'll iron onto the towel rather than iron directly onto the wood. And by doing that we're going to be less likely again to actually scorch the wood, because that is the worry. So I know that I've got the iron turned to a point where it's quite reasonable, but even so we are putting, you know, a very hot iron onto quite a thin veneer of wood there, and we don't want to scorch it and leave a burn mark in the actual wood. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set a timer on my phone, so I know how long. Let me just gently put that over there like that. You can feel the edges, make sure that that hasn't moved, and we're perfectly happy just feeling round it that that hasn't moved. We've got an edge all the way around it. I'll just get my phone here and I'm just going to set the timer on my phone. Timer. We'll set the timer on my phone here and we'll set it for 1 minute. So we've got 1 minute there set on my phone. Because basically I don't want to overheat the wood. We only want to we'll do a minute, we'll see how it's stuck down. If we need to do any more we can cover it and we can do another minute. But like I said, I don't want to overwork it and overheat it. So I'll start the timer there. The timer's running. I've already got the iron heated up to the temperature that I want it. We'll just double check again that we've got that in exactly with the place we want it, because once we start sticking the veneer down, obviously we're kind of committed. And let's start. So we'll put the iron on and we want to slowly rub always keep the iron moving. You don't want to leave the iron actually in one place for too long. And we'll start at one end and we'll just keep moving. Dear me. I'll just stop there. I haven't actually got to the end of the piece, so We're getting right to the end here now. Okay, I'll stop at that. So we did go slightly over. We did go slightly over on the time then, but let's lift this up and let's see how. Ah, see, that's not even started to stick yet. It's not even started to stick, that. So it's obviously going to need a little bit longer. Although I can feel in places where it's getting tacky, but it's not actually started to stick down yet. Just make sure we're still good all the way around, which we are. Yeah. We'll stop the timer because that didn't work. I think we're going to have to do a little bit longer. I wonder if the test piece stuck a lot quicker, but I'm wondering because it was only a tiny little piece of. It was literally just a little chip off that had come off when I cut this piece. It wasn't a big piece of veneer. So I'm hoping that started to go down this time. It's quite a warm job this as well, that the iron's damn hot. That should be going through now. I don't want to leave it, like I say, I don't want to just hold it on one area for too long because I'm worried about scorching it. I definitely think if I've got to do another cabinet again, I will. I'll fork out for the good old-fashioned veneer rather than this. See, with that stuff, there's no real heat involved. Well, there is if you do it the traditional way. The traditional way to fit that type of veneer is actually with animal glue, which you heat up in a pot and then paint on. I'm not that traditional myself. I tend to fit it with contact adhesive, which fits it on really nicely. Obviously, like I said, it's not a traditional method of doing it, but it is quite easy. It seems somewhat easier than this this method. But as I said, I can't look a gift horse in the mouth. This veneer was free. See how that's gluing now. See, that's starting to stick down now. Yeah, that is actually starting to stick down now. We'll give it a good, because I can feel a bit there where it was a little bit high, but it is sticking that now. Well, it does need a lot of pressing on to get it to start to stick. No, I'm not as impressed with this stuff as I thought I might be. And that piece that I tried before, you know, when I was experimenting, that little offcut, that stuck a lot better than this is doing now. But as I said, it was a much smaller, just a little scrap piece. That's where this is. Well, this is the biggest piece. Hopefully the other pieces will actually be a lot easier because, oh, keep moving, don't keep talking. You can talk and move your iron at the same time, you silly guy. Never mind. sure there's proper cabinet makers out there crying watching me doing this, absolutely wincing at it. So I've veneered many cabinets but using the more traditional veneers rather than this iron-on stuff, but you have to try some at once. I've used iron-on vinyls and things like that on different projects. It's just not iron-on veneers. Let's see how that's doing. See, it's not stuck on that side yet, but it is starting to stick everywhere else. It's just this end now that I need to place some more attention on. But let's just double check that side there. That's looking pretty good now. There's a little bit there that I'm not happy with. We can... What I'll do is I'll spin the cabinet over. Because I'm left-handed, I'm tending to do more on the other side. So if we move the cabinet back round like that, I can concentrate on this side a bit more. That's easier. At least you see me doing it like this, you kind of get an idea how long it's actually taking to apply this stuff. See, if I were doing it with standard veneer and contact adhesive, I'd be pretty much done by now. Right, let's have a look at that. I'll take that off and let us have a quick look, see how well that's actually stuck. Apart from a little bit there, there's a little bit there I'm not happy with. It's not bad, it has stuck. It certainly does shrink down a little bit though. But there's a little bit on that corner there I'm not 100% happy with. It's cockled a little bit there. Apart from that, actually, it's stuck down pretty well. Yeah, it's not done a bad job. I'm just going to see if I can get that corner there down a little bit better. It's just cottled there, but we're going to be cutting most of that off anyway, so that's not a huge concern. But let's just see if we can make it a little bit better than it is. As you can see, I'm still keeping the iron moving, but I'm using basically just the tip of the iron and pressing quite hard, just where that little cottle in the wood was, to see if we can get it to bit there. Just see if we can get it to push down basically and glue down. Flatter we can get it, obviously, the better. There we are. That's not too bad now. Right. I'll put the iron to one side. We may need that again. But that has actually stuck down now. It's not stuck down too bad actually. It's going to need a little bit of trimming on the front edge there. So put it flat down like that. Let me see if I've got a new blade, because I want to use as sharp a blade as I can for this. We'll just quickly swap to a new blade. Okay, there we go. Got a lovely new sharp blade in there. And we actually cut it onto the back of this stuff, so it might be a little bit easier. Let's try. We'll go in and we're going to use basically the veneer that's already there as our guide. Press down really as firm as we can and we'll run the blade through. Just following the old veneer. And we should be able to cut that off fairly neat and straight. There we go. Let's just... There we are. So that's the first piece of the veneer off, so that's trimmed nice and smooth along there. We'll do this side now. Hopefully you can see what I'm showing you. Yes, you can. And again, like I say, I'm going to use the piece of wood down there as the guide and push on really quite firm with the scalpel blade. And we're going across the grain here, so this is actually going to be a little bit trickier than the last cut. Purely because, like I said, where the other one was going along with the grain, we're now cutting across the grain. So I think we're probably going to have to do a couple of cuts to get right through it. I can feel that we're going through. There we are. Take that out of the way. Again, push on really hard. Use the existing wood as the guide. Oops, it slipped then. I might have to just slightly tie that up with a little bit of sandpaper when we're finished. And we've just got this back edge to tidy up. So this should be a little bit easier again because we're going with the grain, not against it. Oops. Cut into the back there. Fortunately, because it was on the back, it's not going to really show, but I did slip slightly then. There we are, that's off. We can turn that back over. So it will need a tiny little bit of just finishing off. It will need a tiny little bit of finishing off with some sandpaper on the ends just to neaten it up, but as you can see, a little bit there where there was that little blemish in it, but apart from that, a little bit of muck which has come off my the towel that I was using, but that'll all clean off when I wipe this down with white spirit and give it a sanding. If you look, that's the original on the front there, and that is our replacement veneer on the top there. Right, shall we do another piece? Shall we do that one along there? So what we want to do, we'll take a piece of the veneer, and again it's going to be very similar as where we're going to have to trim it both ends. So what we'll do, we'll just bring that over ever so slightly, so we're overlapping a few mil on that side. We'll do the same on that, so we're overlapping a few mil, and we'll just mark with the pencil just over. Again, like I said, we're going to have the veneer over where it needs to be, and then just cut back the excess. So as you can see, I've marked there, so we've got about 3 to 4 mil of overlap. I'll just get the cabinet up there. Like I said, I'm hoping this might be a little easier, just on the simple fact it's not that huge, great big piece like the top was. That top was relatively tricky to do, and bear in mind I'm quite inexperienced, like I said, with these iron-on veneers. Right, so we've just marked a line on there. That's roughly where we want it, and we'll just double check that's going to be big enough. Yeah, like I said, we want a nice bit of overlap on both sides, so that will work nicely, and then we can trim off the excess once we've actually got it we've got it fitted on there. So we'll cut that off. hold that along there like that. Just grab the knife. And so we're just going to use this spirit level because it's aluminium and we're not going to cut into it. We'll use that as the straight edge. In hindsight, I should have probably done this on the back, so we're actually cutting through the backing, but we'll just have to do what we did last time and cut through them both separately. There we go. Oh, actually that worked quite nicely this time. Put through there. We'll put that piece of veneer to one side because we will be needing that again to do the rest of it. Right. Obviously we can cut that down a little bit on that side, we don't need that much overlap left. So we want to cut that down to about that kind of overlap. Just trim off the excess there. Like that. Okay, that should do. Again, we want a little bit of overlap on either side. We have it about there, that should be about right. And again, we want to cover it with the towel so we don't scorch the wood as we fit it. This is the tricky bit really, because you can move the piece of wood as you put in the like that. So we'll get that about there. That's about right. I'm happy with it on that side there. Yeah, that I'm happy with now. That's in the right position. We'll start with the iron again. In fact, what we'll try and do is we'll try and get this end to actually stick, and that will hold the rest of the veneer in place. I thought the timing method would work actually, but I think it's a case of doing it by feel. See, that's stuck already, that's stuck down. So I was right, these thinner, the narrower strips should be a lot easier to actually do. Ooh. I very nearly ironed with the end of my finger then. And that would not be nice. Let's see how that's doing. Still not quite stuck there, but that's... yeah, there's a few little places it just needs sticking over again, but that's sticking quite nicely actually. We'll carry on going over it until it's fully stuck. Okay, let's have a look at that now. And that feels like it's stuck all the way now. A little bit there today, it just hasn't quite stuck. The rest seems absolutely fine, but there's a little bit there. And just cover that bit there. Keep it with my finger. Yeah, just right about there is still. So we'll just go over that edge, that little bit again. Okay, let's try that. Just a little bit there doesn't seem to be wanting to take. Let me just, again, we'll just perhaps use a little bit more heat on that. I suppose at the absolute worst, if there's one little bit that won't stick, when it's all done and it's all trimmed up, we could always just go in there with a little bit of like a PVA style glue and drop it in at the back and then put a weight on it to stick it. But with any luck, if we just try a little bit more with this, we should get it to stick. Let's try that. Yeah, that's stuck now. That's stuck now. Right, okay. So the next thing I want to do is just take off them edge pieces there and there so it's trimmed up to the rest of the cabinet. So we'll use the scalpel blade. So push on nice and hard, especially on this bit, because again we're going against the grain of the wood, which is going to be harder. We can break that bit off there. We'll deal with the last bit when we actually trim that down. Again, we go in there, use the piece of wood that's there as the guide, bring the scalpel across it, trim that little bit there. There we are. Take that piece off. The next thing I want to do is just trim that bottom piece flat. Again, we can use the step in that to do it. So if we go in with the scalpel, even though we can't see the piece of wood we're actually cutting, we can, once we've gone into it, we can basically use the flat of the wood underneath as a guide. A little bit trickier to do than you'd think, but you can see, you can get the general idea, can't you? Basically what we're going to do is just going to run the blade like that. Put that last little bit there. There we are. Again, we can just run a little bit of sandpaper just along that when we've finished, just to completely tidy it up perfect. The next thing we need to do is actually a little groove in there, and the groove is basically what takes the trim. When we've put the cloth back on there's a brass trim that fits in that slot, and we've actually covered that slot up when we fitted that piece of veneer. So again, we've just got to use the scalpel blade, go back in and just cut along that slot so we've got that back where it should be. In fact, I'll just lift it up slightly so I can see where the slot starts and I can get the blade in, and then I can literally use the slot itself and just gently bring the blade down it. Pull that out there. I did run off ever so slightly then, but fortunately, because I've taken that piece out now, I can go back in at a better angle and I can tidy that up like this. You can get away with doing it in one pull, it's the better. There we go. Again, we can just take out the excess there. And the good thing is that doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, for the simple fact that the trim piece goes over the top of that. So if it's not exact on there, it doesn't matter too much, providing the middle bit's okay. In fact, there's still a little bit of the old wood from the, the old glue from the trim in that groove, But there we go. Clean that out like that. Just get the excess bits out of there. As you can see, that's the new, oops, get them little bits out of there. That's that new piece of veneer on there. The next piece actually might be a bit tricky, because we're just going to have to see the best we can do with this, because I know that this wood's got a little bit of shrinkage to it, and that's got to go right in and along there like that. Now, it doesn't matter if we've got a bit of an overhang at the bottom there, because again we can just trim that off. But what we do definitely need to do is get that as close on that edge there as we possibly can. I'm just actually wondering whether I try and do this without actually using the towel. I'm going to have to be incredibly careful. I've not tried doing this before. But otherwise I don't know how I'm actually going to be able to hold that in place while we do it. Let's cut a thin piece of veneer. I want something just a little bit wider than the space we've got to. We've still got plenty to do the sides as well, because we've still got the side pieces to do. There, and there. But we've got plenty of veneer here left to do that. Okay. Let me just run my blade along here. There we go. So that's our piece that's actually going to go along there like that. I'll make it a little bit narrower. And cut off the excess again. We've got a few mil overhang that side. Got a few mil overhang that side, so about there. And cut that excess off. Now I'm not as worried about scorching this piece, for the simple fact that I'm going to be colouring this a lot darker than the rest of it anyway. That's almost a black border piece there, but it was still veneered. I mean, some radios that would have just been the standard cabinet wood, just painted black, but they have seemed to have used a piece of veneer on this one. So I'm going to hold that in place, and I'm going to do this very, very gently, because I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but see, the heat is going to be a lot more direct doing it this way than using the towel. But it means I can use my fingers just to make sure I keep the veneer as close in to the edge as I actually can. And basically, as I'm bringing the iron along it, I'm just using my other finger just to push the veneer. Okay. And actually, amazingly, I might just run that over one more time just to make sure it's definitely gone on, but that seems to be okay. I was a little bit apprehensive about running the iron directly onto the wood, because we've all seen what happens if we forget our soldering iron and it touches a nice polished worktop for just a second. We end up with a great big burn. And I mean, this isn't as hot as a soldering iron, but it's not actually that far off. You crank this up a bit further and you can melt solder with it. So you're not that far off. Okay, there we go. I think we've actually got away with it. I think that has actually stuck. We'll put that down to one side. Right, so we might be able to get away with that in the future if we have to. What I will have to do now is trim along there and trim down the sides. This is going to be a little bit trickier than I was expecting, but See, on the other ones we could press down on the actual mat. We can't on this one, unfortunately. What I'm going to have to do is just score through this and basically try to score through the adhesive on the back. And turn it over. I'll use my eyeball to work out where it is on the front. Just gently cut down and hopefully we can score through enough that we can break. There we are. Perfect. Spot on. Well, spot on as it needs to be. Right, now what we need to do is basically we need to cut that lip off there. But we can't really press on like we'd like to. I don't fancy doing that because I'm going to cut into my thing. Here's what we'll do. We'll take the metal level, we'll put that across the back of it there and use that as a back. Then we can bring the scalpel blade down there like that, turn round. So we're using that as a backstop, but we're using the bottom of the radio as the guide there. Bring that along. There we go. Just make sure that that's off on that side. There we are. And that's the bottom. Again, we're going to have to just do a little bit of sanding when we finish just to tidy them up, but that's actually not looking bad at all. The top's looking fairly good. Again, we'll just do a really gentle little rub down them sides just to finish them off. So all we've really got to do now is a little piece in there, that little piece in there, and the same on the other side. So let's get on with them. Now there's a little bit of a recess there and so basically the veneer has to sit in like along there and down there, and then we'll do like we had to do on the front there, and we'll use that groove to cut the bottom flush the way it should be. So this one again, I might try that technique I've just tried and do it without putting the cloth over the top of it. So we're happy with that there, like that. We want to go a little bit wider, say to there, and a little bit wider on the back, say to about there. And that's the bit I want to cut out now. So if we come down there like that, we just put that up there, and we want about about that. That should be about right. Yeah, that should be about right. Okie dokie, let's cut that piece. In fact, what we want to do, seeing that and that are all the same, if we cut all the way along there and we cut that into strips, we should have all the pieces that we actually need. Let's get this marked. I mark that there and that there. That should be about right. Let's just double check that there. That looks close enough to me. Again, we don't have to be perfect because we're trimming it down once we've actually got it on the cabinet anyway. So we'll cut that there. I think I'm going to have to change this blade again because this blade's starting to get a bit tired. I can feel it. I can feel that dragging a bit now. Right, that's off there. We'll swap our blade out. I'll have to buy some new ones of these. I've had these for years. Years and years, these. What have we got that's a new one? And I'm getting a little bit short on brand new blades as well. Let's try that one. Some of these are a little bit rusty by the look of it, but they are still brand new, I'm very, very, very sure. Right, okay, excellent. So that's our first piece about there. There we go. Now, I'm going to have to reposition the camera, aren't I, so you can see me doing this. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to see this, are you? That will fit in there quite nicely. Yeah, that fits there nicely. It fits. That's the better way round. Yeah, that's the better way round, like that. Okie dokie. Let me get you so you can see what's happening. There we go, that's better. Right, so I'm going to do it exactly like I just did that front piece. I'm going to get it into position. I will use the iron just straight, just to get it on there, and then we'll use the scalpel. In fact, I've just noticed that that edge there is not 100% true. I'm just going to true that edge up. There we go. That's better. Put that on there again now. That's much better. Yeah, that's a lot better. Right, so I'm happy with that now. We'll use the iron to get that in place, and then we'll scalpel down there, just to fit it fully. But if I can get away with not using the towel with these smaller pieces, it means I can actually keep it held in place with my finger. Actually, I watched a few tutorials I'd seen on applying this stuff, and they were all saying about using a towel, because otherwise you can scorch the wood. But I've not used a towel there, and I've not scorched the wood either. So perhaps, I mean, you might be better off doing it that way. A little bit there on the top I'm not 100% happy with, but we'll see how that dries. That's stuck on quite nicely. In fact, what I think we'll do is we'll stick the next piece on there. It's another nice easy piece. It just stick on like that, and then we'll go back round it and we'll trim them all up at the end. But we'll actually get the we'll just get this tidied up. There's a little bit of a scrap piece on the end there I need to get off. There we go, that's nice and square now. We'll put that on there. And mark that off out there. Okay, there we go, that's cut. And put that in like that. So we want to just go over, basically we're deliberately going over that so we can cut back to it, because there is that little bit of shrinkage apparently on this iron-on. But I've got to say, I think if you can get away with doing it without a towel on, like that, that's the easier way of doing it. I don't know, so you've got a greater heat transfer from the iron through the veneer or what, but and that's on straight away. That actually has gone on really nicely. we'll flip it over, we'll do the other. Have I got enough pieces? Oh, that's a shame, we'll have to cut another piece for one of them pieces, but we've got it. We've got enough veneer left to do that. Put a piece of veneer on there and a piece of veneer on there. Just cut one more piece. We need about that much, aren't we? I mean, sometimes when you're veneering you've got to be a lot more accurate than I'm being here, but fortunately with this radio, the way it's done, we can be a little bit more lax on our the way we're actually doing the veneering. Cut into that like that. And that line there's off a little bit, but it won't matter because we'll be cutting that piece off anyway. Cut that to there. Like that. Okay. Oh, I need to trim that little bit there off. Okay, there we go. So we've got that piece cut for there. That'll go in there like that. And we've got the other piece. In fact, we need to trim that down as well, don't we? There we go. So we've got that piece for there as well. So we've got that piece for there. So that will go in there like that. In fact, that fits in there nicely. And then we've got the last piece for in there like that. So we might as well get these two on. And then we can give it a little bit of a trim up. And then I will go and get some sandpaper and sanding blocks. I've forgotten those. Those are still down in the summer house. And we'll just tidy the edges up. Yeah. All right. I'm starting to warm to this. Warm to it. I'm starting to warm to this iron-on veneer. Perhaps you don't need to use the towel. I wonder if it's due to the fact that I've got the iron set a little bit, possibly a little bit lower than other people have used. But it's certainly enough to activate the glue. It is sticking, it's sticking down quite nicely actually. There we go. So we need to let the glue heat up, because it is a heat activated glue. I suppose a bit like the old animal glues that these would have originally been stuck on with. And there we are. Right. So all we've really got to do now is there's a little bit there on the top I've just noticed that's not quite stuck. Well, we've got the thing. Let's just give that a quick try. Now, because now I'm a little bit more confident about I'm not going to scorch or singe the wood. There was a little bit there where it wasn't sticking down. That's now. Yeah, that's stuck down now. Let's have a look at that last bit over there again. That's perfectly flat now. That's where that little blemish was. That's absolutely perfectly flat now. Yeah, so you can just go over it ever so slightly again and just stick down any bits where it hadn't actually stuck down. Okie dokie, right. What was we doing? Oh, I was just trimming up these last little bits that we've fitted. Let's get the... it's just exactly like I did on that bit on the front. So we'll use the flat of the thing of the mat on the table. We'll press down nice and hard. Just trim that bit up at the back. Again, that's the harder bit because you're actually cutting across the grain, not with the grain. And the same with that bit at the bottom. Just trim across. There we go. Got two little bits on that top there, we'll do them now. Spin it over. Cut across like that. One little last bit here. Push down. Just bring the scalpel through it. There we go. So that's them all trimmed up that way. All we've got to do now is get the grooves back so we can actually put the brass trim back on. So I can see where the groove starts there. Cut in with the scalpel. Then we can literally just follow the groove along like that. And there we go. And then we can pull out that bit. And there we go. Get rid of that. And that's the groove back for the trim to go back in there. Another one to do here, the same. Just gently bring the blade through. Like I said, basically you're using the cabinet to guide the blade. Like that. That's that. Along there. That one's actually very, very close anyway, but we will just have to take a little bit off. But otherwise the brass trim won't fit back in. When we've got the cloth in there as well for the grill cloth on the front, we don't take this excess bits of the veneer off. The brass won't fit in with the grill cloth. Basically what happens is the grill cloth goes in that gap and the brass trim then pushes in over it with some glue and holds it all in place. I've got one more to go. I think is this one up here. So again, we'll just use the cabinet itself as a guide. Pull the there we go. I've actually managed to get it to stick down quite effectively to the cabinet with that bit of glue on this piece, but let's just get that out now. There we are. Ease that out, just not quite cut it at the end. There we are, that's perfect. Right, I will just go and get a sanding block and some very fine sandpaper, and we'll just really, really gently just tidy up these edges. So back in a sec. Okay, we're back. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any really, really fine sandpaper. I've got a medium sanding disc here. It's top quality one as well. So I've got a scrap of wood, and all we're going to do is just wrap that round there. So we've got a nice flat. Basically, what we want is a really nice flat edge, like that. And all we want to use it for is we're literally just going to tidy these edges. In fact, this isn't bad. I was thinking about something a little bit finer than this, but this is working really nicely. All we want to do is all our cut edges, just really gently, just smooth them off like that. Just take off any any roughness from the fact that we used a blade to cut the timber. We don't want to press on, we're using minimal pressure here because we don't want to really hack into the wood. All we want to do is just take any little excess burrs or anything that are on the wood off. Again, just go down nice and gentle like that. Just bring your fingers. It's really this top piece that's the important one to get nice and flat. Like I said, these at the top we've had to get it as good as we can. At the bottom, when the trim piece goes back on, that will cover any little imperfection that there is. But on the bottom, we're going to have to do the same thing on the bottom. Just gently run. There we go. That's all it needs. And all we're doing is just, like I said, we're just smoothing any little roughness that we created when we made them pieces of veneer. There we go. The nice long ones when you go in with the veneer like that are quite easy to do. You've got to be a little bit careful when you go in against the veneer like these edge pieces. So you don't want to splinter the veneer. Just gently, just slightly round it. Just make, basically the nice thing to do, use your fingers, just feel as you go. That feels pretty nice, that. And that one just needs a very gentle. That's perfect. Run your finger along. Run your finger along. And that feels pretty good. And pretty much there we are. That is the all the bad veneer on the cabinet has now been replaced. The cabinet obviously is not completely finished yet. What we're going to have to do now is this is all going to need a really light sand just to smooth it all down. What we'll probably do is we'll give it a light sand. We'll apply some white spirit to it, and it'll lift any of the low grain. We'll give it another light sand. We'll add the colour to it. We'll put some colour on it. Then we'll put the lacquer on it. Once we've got the lacquer on it, we'll be ready to actually put the dial cloth back on it. We've got the trims that we took off previously here. That's what I was saying, that go around and they'll basically hide any little imperfections. We basically have a trim that goes round like that, top and bottom. These still need refurbishing and getting back to new. But we'll be doing most of that on the next video. This video is already going to be a reasonable length. With just doing the veneer in there. So in the next video, we'll give this a really light sand. Like I said, we'll prep it for some colour. We'll get a little bit of colour on there, and we'll put the lacquer on it. We'll probably do a refurb on them, get them ready for refitting, and then in the final video, basically it's a case of putting the radio all back together. You know, we'll put the grill cloth back on, we'll reinstall the chassis, we'll reinstall all the working bits, we'll put all the brights on, we'll put all the trim on, and we'll have a really nice finished radio at that point. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, this is really the first time I've ever really messed with this iron-on style veneer. I've always used traditional veneers before now. What do I think about it? Well, I can't say that what I was suggested with the towel really worked as well as people had suggested it would do, and you don't scorch the veneer. Not using the towel, being careful. I've not scorched the veneer, I've not damaged the veneer. It's gone on really nicely. I I'm actually tempted to get a roll of this myself because I've got a couple of radios in the cellar which need re-veneering. I mean, the cabinets are in bad condition. They would need re-veneering. I am actually tempted to get a roll myself and perhaps have a play on a bigger cabinet, you know, that needs a lot of work. There's got some curves on it and things like that rather than just a flat slab cabinet. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Like I say, I hope you enjoyed that little update on the project. Hopefully it won't be as long until the next update on the project. So thanks for watching and goodbye.